Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Well, first, I must apologize. Some of you obviously had the opportunity to see the very first piece of content that I published today. Unfortunately, OBS decided to not record any sounds. I got to tell you, OBS, if any of you folks are familiar with that system, can be quite challenging, needless to say. Anyway, let's get on with the content here. So obviously we are continuing our coverage of the ongoing war between the United States, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Israel. And obviously the fighting continues. Probably heavier today than even at times within the last 48 hours or so. Now, what's interesting is that it would appear that the Iranians believe, and obviously there are analysts out there that also believe, that the Iranians are simply going to fight a missile war of attrition against the United States and Israel with the intent of eventually wearing down the U.S. missile inventory in terms of air defense capacity. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. It's a little bit more complicated. So, first, one of the most important developments that we have probably seen within the last several hours is the fact that the United States is now operating Reaper combat drones over Iran. Now, the United States is not just operating these systems at night. There is actual footage of a U.S. Reaper drone operating over Shiraz, the city here, as you can see on the map, in broad daylight, engaging ground targets with Hellfire missiles. Now, what that means, or what that tells us, is that the United States, at this point, is not overly concerned about the air defense capacity of the Iranians. Again, yes, the Reaper is a drone. However, it is a very expensive drone, and the United States is just not going to fly this system with the intent of it getting shot down unless the U.S. Air Force reasonably believes that it would not be shot down. Now, look, there is a possibility that the U.S. could be using some of these systems to goad the Iranian air defense network into waking up and trying to paint some of these targets where other U.S. systems can then engage those air defense systems. However, with that being said, the Reaper would not be the first go-to system if that was the mission. Right now, the way the Reapers are being used, they're being used currently to sense targets, and then they're being used to destroy targets. Now, yes, the Reaper is a drone. However, it can carry a pretty large payload. It can carry multiple laser-guided bombs or Hellfire missiles and other missile systems as well. And again, what that tells us in terms of seeing a Reaper operating over Shiraz in the middle of the day, again, tells us that the U.S. is comfortable with operating some of these high-end systems over Iran's major cities, and they don't feel that there's a threat of those systems getting shot down. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you, in all probability, have dozens of Reaper drones and other drone systems as well, besides actual fixed-wing combat aircraft operating over Iran. You now have these other drone systems acting as bomb trucks, targeting Iranian ballistic missiles, targeting Iranian cruise missile sites, and drone launching sites. And that's what they're doing. So again, it's not so much an issue that the United States will run out of air defense missiles, right? They will run out of Patriot missile batteries or the actual Patriot missiles. While that is happening, while the United States is definitely expending missile systems, and furthermore, we're starting to see actual U.S. aircraft, we're starting to see Qatari aircraft, Kuwaiti aircraft, UAE aircraft actually going out and trying to hunt inbound cruise missiles and inbound drones that are designated for strikes against the Gulf Cooperation Council. So we're seeing that happen as well. But again, more importantly, these systems, these drone systems, are now able to operate over Iran unmolested and hunt for targets and destroy those targets. I would probably say at this point, the greatest target the U.S. can probably go after right now are the actual launching systems for these ballistic missiles and these drones. And again, it's not overly difficult if you have complete air dominance and you have dozens of these drones and other systems as well that have almost continuous, and other sensor systems as well, that have continuous observation over Iran. And again, it's just not a issue in which the United States would just start to run out of air defense missiles. Now look, if this was just Israel, we could look at that, right? But, you know, given what the United States inventory is, I don't think at this point that's something that the Pentagon is overly concerned about. I really don't. I really don't. Now, additionally, within the last 24 hours, 3 F-15 Strike Eagles were shot down by Kuwaiti air defense systems. And I got to tell you, if we go back many years ago, I've had the opportunity to work with members of the Gulf Cooperation Council. And I can tell you, based on my experience in terms of working with some of these individuals, I got to tell you, if I was an American pilot, I would be more concerned about a Kuwaiti or an Emirati service member with his finger on the launch button of a Patriot missile battery than I would be concerned about the Iranian air defense forces. I know that may sound a little harsh, but again, based on my experience. Now look, it's very possible these forces could have improved since I worked with them, so to speak. But, you know, during my period of time in the service and having the opportunity to interact with some of these folks, I would not want to be a pilot operating or coming back from a mission from Iran, operating near the borders of Iran and coming back and trying to land in Kuwait or some other place in the Middle East, knowing that, again, some of these individuals have their finger on a Patriot missile battery. A little concerning. And I think many American service members, depending on who you operate it with, have their stories about interacting with, let's just call it what it is, Arab armies, okay? It can be challenging, and it was, and it apparently still is, obviously. Now, regarding the initial conversation, the initial speechification of Donald Trump, talking about the fact that the Iranians may be ready to have a conversation. I don't think that's the case. Again, I talked about this in the prior episode, and I do believe, in terms of where we are sitting right now, the United States has miscalculated. What have they miscalculated? Well, they've miscalculated the success that they were going to have in terms of killing senior leadership officials of Iran. I think they were probably too effective. Now, what we're hearing now is the current commander of the IRGC is definitely not in any sort of mood to have a conversation with the United States right now. He's fighting a war. He's a war fighter. And again, as I talked about in the previous episode, if this would have happened in the United States, right, if we would have seen this sort of kinetic strike against the United States that the United States has launched against Iran, the last thing that certain battlefield commanders would be wanting to do, that would be having a conversation with the United States or vice versa. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So right now, this is just going to be a dogfight until one side finally gets tired of fighting. That's what's going to happen right now. Now, again, I don't believe it's going to be a case where the United States is just going to up and run out of air defense missiles. It's a little too simplistic. Well, maybe more than just a little simplistic. It's heavy on simplicity. Again, much more complicated in terms of what's happening right now in the air and on the ground in terms of capability. And right now, the United States is not going to run out of any sort of capability to strike Iran and or to defend itself. Because again, offensive operations can be defensive operations as well. If you're out targeting and destroying offensive systems, inherently that's defensive in nature, and you're not going to need to use your Patriot missile batteries because you're out destroying missiles before they can get launched. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, so again, this conflict, this war, is going to go on for some time until one side tires of fighting. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be the United States? Are we going to see additional casualties? Are we going to see external pressure, internal pressure? Possibly. Is the fact that we're killing so many Iranian troops and soldiers and leaders, is that going to create an environment where the Iranians want to come to the table and initiate a ceasefire? Maybe. But we're not there yet. We are not even close to there. So this is going to have to go for a bit. And it is going to go for a bit. And ultimately, one side will prevail. One side will tire of fighting because of casualties, because of the destruction of assets and internal pressure. Now, who that will be at this point, we'll just have to watch what happens. But what we're seeing now will probably escalate. We will probably see heavier strikes. We will probably see the war expand. Possibly. Possibly not. But that is essentially where we are at right now. So look, more to come very, very soon. As always, thank you for joining us. Good day.